Breaking news out of the Kelowna Now newsroom. I'm here with Ian Burns. Trump gives us another reprieve. Just like being on death row, and every time they walk you towards the gallows, you're just like, okay, just so you can go back in there and just wait for another month.
Yeah. Well, I think it's not often that we get the opportunity to say this, but I think Melanie Jolie hit the nail on the head when she said it's just like a psychodrama. And she
Uh,
also said, which I think is quite correct, we can't keep doing this every 30 days. And I mean, it's not just us as like everyday citizens, it's the businesses as well, and it's
um,
so many decisions have to be made. Sometimes decisions that, will affect what happens in 5, 10 years. They're being made all the time, but they can't be made now because of this craziness. But here we are once again.
yeah, and it's just like, and it's like a cat on a string, like, and he's got this string, and we're kind of like dancing around for it because, like, first he announces Mexico gets, because it must be intentional, because Mexico gets a reprieve, and that was earlier this morning, and then Trump and Trudeau have a phone call, and then we get different renditions of what this phone call sounded like, and some people saying there was some profanity in there, and then Trudeau's on there teary-eyed, and all of a sudden we get a reprieve.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a particularly good way to run a country, is it? I would say myself, for my own opinion. But he also has just sat down. You know how he brings in the press while he
Yeah.
signs executive orders. He sat down for like about an hour or something like that, chatted away, and he did discuss Canada, and it was much the same, really. He said Canada has nothing that we want. I mean, that's obviously
Same
stupid and
language,
false.
right? Same stuff.
Yeah. And then he also said, we've got more lumber than them, which I found interesting and amusing because I really don't think that's true, but whatever. Not sure how much of what he says is true. But anyway, so he went on about that. And then his media people, his media team at the White House, they released a statement saying that actually this is all about cars, this reprieve. And he said it's in recognition, oh, sorry, the White House statement says it's in recognition of the structure of the automotive supply chain. So, I mean, to be honest, they're just making it up as they go along, aren't they? I mean, I almost feel like I'm demeaning myself by even reading this or listening to Donald Trump because it's all nonsense. It's
Yeah.
all bollocks, isn't it?
The only comment I have for Melanie Jolie is she's playing a role in this movie, and she's not exactly one of the starring characters in it.
No, she's on the periphery for sure.
Yeah.
But
And,
anyway, another bit of sort of breaking news actually. Breaking news on top of breaking news is that Dominic LeBlanc, the kind of action man of the federal government right now, he has just tweeted and said that Canada is gonna suspend the second wave, the $125 billion of tariffs until the 2nd of April, because that's when Trump has delayed this set of tariffs till, and that's also when he wants to put in the reciprocal tariffs, which is going
I,
to raise big questions about Canada's dairy industry because they're
uh,
going to be the first victims of that.
I think that's where it all comes down to, and I've heard Trump speak so many times, and I said, because he said the end game in all this is that we're going to put reciprocal tariffs on every country that puts tariffs on us, and I said that's the plan. And so if that's the plan, so I mean, which would probably not bode that would probably be okay for Canada, other than our dairy industry, obviously, because there is some protectionism going on there, and then the digital services tax would be probably one of those things looked at. But other than that, I think Canada's already under that USMCA. And I know that I saw some people in our agriculture industry really kind of like, not sure what they're doing because a lot of they sell a lot of the produce, this especially from the lower mainland. They sell a lot of the produce, and same as Ontario, I guess. A lot of produce is sold into the United States.
Yeah, but also conversely, and very interestingly, since Trump said that Canada has nothing that America needs, the farmers in the US have been panicking about their fertilizer supply because they get it from
Potash, yeah.
Saskatchewan in the form of potash. Yeah. So actually, another thing that's in there, that's in this White House statement, is that you know how they're only going to do 10% on energy? They've
Yeah.
now included potash in that as well, in the 10%. So
Yeah.
that's another recognition. While Trump says one thing,
Yeah.
reality says another. That's another concession on their part that actually they cannot afford that. They can't survive without
Yeah. And
Canadian fertilizer.
Uranium is in there too, and that's from Cameco. I mean, one of the largest suppliers, and Cameco for their nuclear power plants. And other than that, you can go buy from Kazakhstan.
I mean, they've got a little bit of it as well, haven't they? Somewhere in,
Yeah,
I think
no, for
it's
sure. Yeah,
Utah or
but
somewhere, but
not
they don't have anywhere near enough. No.
not like Saskatchewan has so much to offer, and so does Alberta, right? The energy thing is like that's our beast that needs to be unleashed. And again, you and I talked about this in our really big show, and you can watch this on the really big show. There's a little plug for us. Every weekday morning at 9 o'clock, it's about an hour-long show, and we talk about all this and a lot more. We're just trying this out and seeing if these breaking news things actually have some value for you. But Alberta's energy, and maybe the silver lining in this cloud of like uncertainty will even the liberals and the NDP will recognize that our wealth is beneath our feet, and that we need to unleash our energy, and we need to let them out the gate and let them on the ice, if you want to use a hockey analogy.
Yeah, well, I feel like this has probably been quite a traumatic experience for Canada's political class. I would say that
Yep.
this has really scared them, and it's really made them feel like, they lost control of the reins, didn't they? They lost control of the wheel, and they have not been in control of Canada's destiny for the last month and a bit. So I feel like they're going to learn lessons from this, and you would think if they're smart enough, one of the main lessons that they'll learn is that the biggest weapons that Canada had, what it really boiled down to in the end was actual, real, like hard power, things like electricity, uranium, potash, oil, minerals. It didn't boil down to services that are provided from white collar workers in Toronto and Vancouver and Montreal. Nobody cares about that because it's not worth anything. What it all boiled down to was the stuff in the ground, the stuff that Canada produces, and also to a sort of lesser extent, I guess, the car industry. But we need to focus on that. We need to remember that because when it really came down to it, and we were pointing guns at each other, we know we still kind of are, the Americans and the Canadians. The bullets that we had in our gun they were all natural resources, basically. So let's not forget that, and let's hope that our feckless leadership class also doesn't forget that.
And I think that's the key point there. Like, and the last 10 years of this leadership, even in Chrystia Freeland's own words, she said Justin Trudeau has spent 10 years prioritizing identity politics and virtue signaling instead of looking after the economics of Canada. And he said it in his own words. He doesn't worry about the economy. And look, this is where it's got us. They have to take responsibility for where they put us. They put us in this bad spot where we have one customer that is now playing us like a fiddle. And Danielle Smith, really good. What she said this morning there too, that we played on the really big show, is that regardless, we need to find alternative markets for our energy, so that we're not at the whim, and then they can bid on our oil and gas, right? Because we're selling our oil and gas at a discount because we only really have one market, right? So if we had other options, they'd have to bid on it like an auction, right? Like our oil and gas sells at a discount to what the Saudis sell theirs for.
Yeah, and it almost seems like this has just flown over Donald Trump's head. I mean, it's not just that. They don't just get a sweet deal on oil. It's on so many things.
Yeah.
Like it's no exaggeration to say that one of the key elements to America's global predominance is that it has Canada as a northern neighbor. You could not possibly have asked for a better neighbor and friend than Canada, an extremely peaceful, friendly country that gives you things cheaper than you would get them on the world market. That is just endlessly open and friendly and nice to the United States, except a couple of tiny little things like this potentially somewhat irrational desire to protect the dairy industry against every single force in the universe. Okay, that's a bit weird. The digital services tax, there's like a couple of things that you could discuss over a coffee in a very civilized way. But
Yeah.
instead of Trump recognizing that, he's chosen instead to essentially smash up his own house. Just remarkable to behold.
And the stock market reflects that. But the one thing, though, I want people to realize, though, is that we've been put in this position due to the bad economic decisions that the Liberal Party has made and supported by the NDP over the past 10 years. If the Liberal Party is to hold power again, they need to wake up and realize that our natural wealth and prosperity is beneath our feet, and they definitely don't have that. And again, if we go back to that hockey analogy, they benched our superstars and they played everybody that is like maybe a future star, solar, wind, and all this stuff, and at the expense of Canadian prosperity.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I'm not entirely sure if it's 100% down to the Liberals. We should also bear in mind the opposition that they faced, even when they tried to do like TMX. The opposition was just, it was relentless. British Columbia, many NGOs and charities, many of them
Yeah.
based in the United States, ironically. Then whenever there was any sort of discussion about Energy East, then it's Quebec, then there are First Nations. You know,
Wasn't
the
Brad Pitt in there
Liberals, so
Is it?
even if the Liberals try,
Yeah.
and they have tried at times, they're dragged down by all of these special interest groups and
Wasn't
sort of provinces.
wasn't Brad Pitt in there once, or one of those movie stars was in there chirping about Canadian oil and gas too, right? And all that stuff too, right? So
Maybe Leonardo.
I think that's who it was, Leonardo DiCaprio. I think we don't want to
Yeah.
sully Brad Pitt's name there, but I think it was
Yeah,
Leonardo.
sorry, Brad.
Yeah. But anyway, um, we need somebody that puts Canada first. And I had a friend actually tell me get mad and say like, oh, Pierre Poilievre's Canada first is a MAGA movement. Like you can't be saying Canada first. And I showed him the email from Mark Carney, Canada first. I was like, what's that? Well, he just wrote his. He didn't put his on the podium. I'm like, come on, right? Like, and it's not bad if Pierre says it, and it's not bad if Carney says it. Canada needs to be put first. Look at the America; they're putting themselves first, and look at the mess we're in here.
Well, that is also, from the 19th century. That's where that term comes from. Well, it came from the Americans first, way back in the sort of like 1850s or something, or 1820s or something like that. But then there was the Canadian version, Canada First, that was pioneered by the Liberal Party.
Yeah,
So,
Sir
it is
Wilfrid.
actually the Liberals should submit a copyright infringement claim on that.
I think I think they mentioned the CBC mentioned Sir Wilfrid Laurier was the one that first coined that phrase, according to the CBC anyway. So, and a liberal.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure who it was, but it's some point in the 19th century. Yeah, and it was definitely the Liberal Party, which kind of makes sense if you go back and sort of study the politics because well, I will not go into it, but it makes sense. The left used to be a lot more of that persuasion back in the day, but not so much nowadays.
Well, I mean, it just makes common sense, but it's just funny how this person needed to put it out to me and say that was a MAGA thing to say, and all of a sudden when I said, well, Carney's saying it, it's like, well, that's I'm surprised, but but yeah, he didn't put it on the podium. I'm just like, okay, like, come on.
Yeah, and he's not the only one. Just listen to any of Justin Trudeau's, when on a couple of occasions where he's come out in response to the tariffs and he's released the information about retaliatory tariffs. Just listen to the way that he speaks. It is, you could summarize that as Canada first. It's very much about, we'll do everything that we can to maximize the damage against the Americans while minimizing the damage against Canadians. We're always going to put you first. We're always going to look after you. Sounds pretty much like Canada first to me.
So we won't belabor this. Well, we'll let you go and see what turns up tomorrow. But I do want to tell people, if you're looking for some entertainment, head to Jagmeet Singh's Facebook page, and he's posted something on there where he's got a petition that he's promoting to ban Donald Trump from coming to Canada for the G7. And again, I would think that's a really bad idea, because then he would just host the G7 in the United States at the same time, and then where is Japan going, Ian?
Yeah, I feel like they might go to the country that preserves their nation's existence by
Yeah.
putting
So
soldiers in Tokyo and Okinawa and so on.
yeah, and where's the UK going?
Yeah, I mean, I think the British have already said very loudly and very clearly that they don't care about Canada and that they'll go and kiss the bottom of Donald Trump. I
So then Germany, where does Germany go?
think there's a reasonable chance that they're also going to go to the US.
So who's that leave?
Do we have Italy? I'm not sure the Italians will cut us any slack.
No, Giorgio
Who are we gonna
Maloney.
have? Maybe we'll
Giorgio
have.
Maloney is going to Canada. I mean, going to the U.S.
Yeah, maybe we can do the G1.
Yeah, we would do well there. Jagmeet could head it up. He could be the speaker. Him and Justin could do well. They're the dynamic duo. They could definitely like hold their own summit. I'm sure.
Maybe
Elizabeth
we could
May.
do.
Elizabeth
Who
May
needs
would
foreign
go there.
countries?
What's that?
Who needs foreigners? We could just have with the First Nations, their nations, so we can all come together. It could be a G500
Or they
of
could
all the
do.
nations.
We're just being funny here. We could do the coalition of the willing, like how George W. Bush did that. We could do countries like like Zambia and Mozambique and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know if we could bribe them enough to get them
I
to
don't know if we
come,
have enough.
but well, we could try.
Yeah. Anyway, we're just kind of like making some fun here at the end here. It's getting late in the day. It's a little bit loopy. There you go. Right?
Well, that's the nature of everything nowadays, isn't it? It's all a bit bonkers and upside down.
I'm not
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
sure.
There you go. There's some comments there for you too, right? Yeah. So anyway, people are just fighting with each other on there. So there you go.
Well, again, that's perfectly appropriate. That's the world we live in.
Yeah.
Get your fists out.
Get your fists out, right? There you go. Who doesn't want to do that, right? And this person says, tired of conservatives with soft hands and soft heads. Not sure what that means. I don't even know what that means, but hey, at least we're
Soft
interacting, right?
hand. Soft hands means you don't have a real job. You never had a real job. That's what
Mm.
that says. And soft head means you're stupid. So you're a stupid white collar kind of guy. Little do they know that you spent a lot of your life working in mills and whatnot, but how
Working in
could
the
they know that?
mills, working on the rigs, and working in a mine. There you go. Almost all of it, right? There you go.
But obviously, randomers on the internet know more, so good for them.
Mine's mills and drilling. I guess there you go. And I love our resource sector. It is where our natural wealth is. And again, I would caution or ask anybody that doesn't understand it to walk through any hospital, and you're going to see some of the biggest equipment in there donated by companies like Kinross and Barrick and oil and gas companies, like some of our biggest companies in Canada. And if you go look at our TSX, it's going to be dominated by resource sector companies. The GDP that the services that you all love and talk about were provided to us from the wealth that comes from our ground. So there you go.
Yeah, it's why this country exists ultimately. Gone back hundreds of years, it's all about resources.
Yeah, we sure didn't come up here just for the snow. I know you got lots of snow there. You must like it. So
Well, I like the sunshine because
there
you
you
don't
go.
get any of that in England, so no regrets on the weather.
There you go. We do thank you for watching Kelowna Now, and we'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. With our weekday show, and then it'll be last show of the week, and we're on 5 days a week. You can find us, and we stream live on X, and we stream live on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Now we got to kind of like set up a stealth account, and we also stream on our Facebook at Kelowna Now live streams, stealth account till they find it and ban it and block it and do whatever they want to do with Bill C-18. Thank you, Ian, and thank you for watching Kelowna Now.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent.